So when you found out you were pregnant, well, how did you find out you were pregnant, first of all? And then how did your boyfriend at the time react? I mean, what do you remember of that?
All I remember is that I had missed a period. And I thought, this is really odd. I should have had my period by now. And I honestly don't even remember. I know I did a pregnancy test. I don't remember even getting it. Where would I have even gone? I don't know. But I did a pregnancy test at home, and then that's when kind of my stomach dropped.
Wow.
Just this just sinking feeling. And that was I was probably 6 or 7 weeks along at that time. By the time I told my boyfriend, I remember he started saving money. He worked part-time after school, and he started saving money in this little can. And I can see that can with the wadded up cash in it. And I just remember he would work and then give me cash at school, and I knew what it was for, and we'd put it in this can. And so by the time I talked to my mom and shared with her, I was more like 12 weeks along. And that's when it just kind of went really quickly there, setting
Yeah.
up the appointment at the abortion clinic, going through with it. And so I was 12 weeks. Which is, there's a lot of development at 12 weeks in that baby. But I just knew I had missed a period, did a test, and then during that time, we knew we had to save up enough money, and that's why I didn't tell them for quite some time. But that's where that feeling of, oh God, dread.
And
Yeah. Every day was
guilt
dread,
and
shame,
yeah.
and survival. All of that just kind of, you just did one day at a time. And I remember too that there were other girls in our high school that would get pregnant, and how they were shunned, how they were treated, how they were gossiped about, which is terrible. And then the ones that did choose life for their baby, which I now celebrate and say, thank you, God, that they
Yeah.
went against the grain
Right.
and had their babies and were there for their babies. But at the time, I was part of the mocking crowd, the crowd that was, putting them down. And I just think how awful that was. And then here I was in the same situation,
predicament.
in the same predicament that they were in. And how dare I say anything about what they chose? They chose life, and I didn't. So that was, yeah. There's a lot too that I know a lot of people that try to block out, and there's a lot I can't remember or can't recall,
Sure.
So.
And we didn't really discuss after you and I started dating and we got real serious, and before we got engaged, you shared with me, but we didn't discuss details.
No.
We didn't really go back and.
I don't know if I even used the word abortion with you either. I think
you might not have.
I think the first time I said it, I said I was pregnant and then I wasn't. And I said, and I don't have a baby. And isn't that crazy? And it's like you fill in the blanks.
Yeah, it was coping mechanisms and ways to handle what really
what the gravity
happened.
of it.
Yeah, and it's easier to gloss over that. And I guess, I didn't want to know. I knew enough that was a terrible trauma for you, and why would I want to bring up a trauma when we're in love and,
Yeah,
wanting to
yeah.
be focused on a future for us together. So I don't know if I should have been
No,
asking. I don't know if it would have
no,
helped in
I don't.
your,
At that time, it probably wouldn't have.
yeah.
At that early on, no. I wasn't in a place ready to process it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why it took so many years. And I think it took seeing our own children grow up. And I always
Yeah.
had thought about that first baby.
The day's gonna
Yeah.
come
Well,
when,
but the fact that, like when I fill out any doctor forms in an office, how many
oh,
pregnancies?
oh,
3.
right.
How many births? 2.
Right.
And so then when our kids came along, I always had thought, what if? What if I would have had that first baby, you know? It never left. That thought never really
Right, I don't even
left.
think about that when you go into doctor's office. You have to relive that over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So anyway, so it was kind of when our kids came along that really I got to thinking more about it and thinking, I really need to process this. I really need to think through this. Because yes, I knew we were going to talk to them, but at the same time, seeing them grow up in the baby years, you
Right.
wonder what would have that first baby been like?
Right.
What would it have been, a boy or a girl? And at 12 weeks, I don't think they can tell yet on a sono. It's more like 20 weeks, but it's there. It's there in their genes and the chromosomes,
Sure.
all of that. So those kind of things, just like you would go through a natural pregnancy, you want to know if it's a boy or girl,
Right.
and are they going to have hair or bald or dark hair, blonde, all those things.
Yeah.
So that was definitely something that kind of was always in the back of my mind. What would that baby have been like? What would it have looked like? And in this side of heaven, we don't know.
Yeah. If, your parents took you to the clinic, but how much was he involved besides money, besides just providing the funds for the process? Did he just pretty much check out from the whole rest of it? And then after, what was your relationship after the abortion?
I don't remember him being involved much at all during the process. I just remember giving the money that was in the can to my mom. I wish, in retrospect, I wish my parents would have brought him in and his dad as well. I wish they would have reached out and had a big, almost a family meeting of some sort.
Do you think, he technically could have kept that a secret himself in his own family.
Oh, it's very probable.
Yeah,
Very
very
probable
likely.
that it's a secret in his family too.
And I'm also do you think he did any research on
Oh no, no.
other
And
alternative?
why? I don't know how abortion became the answer for every pregnancy if you're a teenager in high school.
Yeah.
How is it that the majority of teenagers, if you get pregnant,
That's the default.
that's the default answer. It's like there's
Yeah.
no conversation
Yeah.
about anything else. And I find that very interesting that everybody, my mom went right to the abortion solution. The boyfriend went right to the abortion solution. And it was like, really? That's it? How is that we have been so blinded as a culture and as a society?
I was going to say it's become a cultural norm and a societal norm.
That's
in
now birth control?
Modern
is that...
countries, first
Yeah.
world countries, modern economies. Yeah, it's so messed up. It's so backwards, but it's an effective tool of Planned Parenthood that they got into the school system and
Well, into that business
into
for
that
sure.
business,
And
and it's
that's,
everybody goes to that.
I would love to be able to change the mindset of people and
Yep.
let them know there are options out there and so many resources. Oh my gosh. Now, there may not have been as many back when I was going through it, but there still were options. There still were choices. And the fact that we didn't look into any of them.
Yeah.
So it was like he got a pass. I had to go through all of it.
You did all the
Physically,
difficult.
emotionally.
Yeah.
I had to take on the burden of the whole thing, and he got a pass. He, you know, that didn't feel real good. And I remember after the abortion, it truly was just survival mode. It was, I still had my blinders on. I still kept my emotions at bay. I just wouldn't let myself think about anything too deeply because it would hurt too much, because I knew what I had done. I knew exactly what we were doing and what happened. And I think there's something intrinsically in all of us women when they get pregnant, because your entire body, your hormones shift, things shift and are adjusting, and it's all geared toward protecting that baby.
Right.
Everything in your body, all your cells, everything. And so that's why I called it a trauma earlier. That's why, because when your body is in that baby making mode and you
Stop it
in a moment's notice,
instantly,
you
yeah.
stop it instantly, and it's not a natural stopping. That's what marks a trauma. That's what marks and because then your body has to go, wait a minute, what just happened? And now we have to readjust and refigure things out, and it takes a while for things to settle back down, to heal physically.
Yeah.
And even though my body healed physically just fine, emotionally, that was a lot of years later, emotionally, to be able to deal with it and work through the emotional side.
Yeah. And you had talked about the resources available. You know, if you don't research anything, you're not going to know what's available. And it frustrates me when I hear, you know, abortion is outlawed now, and that's such a terrible thing, because all these women are going to get no support from anybody after they have their baby, and all the people, all the anti-abortionists, all they care about is, you know, protect the baby, but then they don't come alongside the women. That is completely a lie. Because
Absolutely.
your group, just a small functioning group of volunteers, come alongside for 3 years.
Till their baby's 36 months old.
Yeah.
And these
Provide
pregnancy
them
centers,
diapers and formula.
they were
and
there.
They've
They
been
were
there.
there. They've been there, and
Yep.
they've been serving women for all these years. There wasn't Google back then, so you couldn't just look it up, but you could ask and you could find out, or look in the the yellow pages,
Yeah,
like
back
we used
then,
to do.
right?
In the yellow pages, I mean, you would have found them. They were there, but not a lot of people know.
Or even bothered.
yeah.
And of course, Planned Parenthood's not going to want to lose their business
Right.
model.
Right. And I'd say now more than ever, even with abortion in Texas not being legal, we still have women that are in unplanned pregnancy situations. We still need to be supportive and help and,
Still need
and
to
counsel
communicate
them.
that,
And
hey, we will come alongside you. And again, that's really all they need is for somebody to come alongside
Exactly.
them.
And let them know they are not alone.
Mm-hmm.
They are not alone. So that's the way I wish my parents would handle things, and then the way that I wish they would have looked into other options.
Right.
As difficult as that would have been to walk through, that's life. That's
Yeah.
bringing life,
Yeah.
you know. So I would like to have been guided that way.
Mm-hmm. Or at least been given a choice.
Yeah.
You weren't given a choice.
Right. Right. So, and it's hard because I don't fault my parents. I really don't. I
Yeah.
don't blame them. I just wish they would have handled things differently.
Right.
But I did have to work things out with them. I think it was maybe 8 years ago, 10 years ago,
Yeah.
something like that.
We had a
We had
serious
very serious
family talk.
conversation, and both of them have lived with shame and regret and wish they would have done things differently as well. So that's a whole other level to think about, all the people that abortion affects.
It's a domino effect, really.
Right.
It's not just you. It's not just your baby. It's everybody connected to you and your future
Yeah. Oh,
children.
yeah. Well, and
Yeah.
I remember my brother at the time, of course, we were in high school. He knew there was something going on in the house that nobody was talking about, that there was some big secret with me going on, and nobody would tell him what that was. And so he felt left out. He felt distant from the rest of us, like he wasn't important enough to be in this,
included or
be
trusted.
included or trusted
Yeah.
with this situation. So I think that affected him and our
Your
relationship.
relationship.
It affected my parents, it affected the boyfriend, and it affected you, my future spouse, and our children. I mean, so it's just it's a ripple effect that people don't think about, all the lives that are touched because of it.
That's
That's
why
a lot.
protecting life is so critical and so important, because of the ripple effects that, it had a negative effect and it could have had a positive effect.
Because I think most women intrinsically know, our instinct from
Yeah.
me, from having been pregnant 3
Yeah.
times now, the instinct is to protect the baby.
Right.
The instinct is, it can be overwhelming, but then abortion goes exact opposite against what your body is physically and emotionally preparing for. And they're in direct opposition to one another. So I think, thinking about this is really deep, thinking about the internal conflict going on, because, like I had said, instinctually, I knew this was another life. I knew this was a baby, but it's like this battle, this warring inside yourself, that you're just back and forth. It's back and forth because you're trying to, here's the reality, here's the day in, day out reality, and then here's this life. And what is your reality going to look like having this baby? And,
Yeah.
so it's this warring that's going on. But I think I knew. I think, too, I was, without parental guidance, I was too weak. From all intents and purposes, I looked like a strong leader person on the outside in high school. But really, when it came down to it, I was too weak to stand up and say, this is my baby. I don't want to do this. I never said that. I think I knowingly gave my parents the decision
Yeah.
because then it put it in their
At the
hands.
time,
At
it
the
was
time,
easier,
it was
probably,
easier. Exactly. It was
to
easier
just,
to just say, "Tell me what to do."
yeah.
I mean, who doesn't, and throughout their life at times say, "Just tell me what
Just
to
do,
do. Tell me
yeah.
what I'm supposed to do, and I'll just do it."
Right.
This decision's too complicated, you know. So I think I knowingly, purposefully did that. So I wish I could have changed that too, because I think if I would have even remotely said, "I don't think this is right. Can we figure out something else? What can we do?" At least taking the time.
Sure.
At least taking a little time to
Sure.
do that. I don't know. That might have been a different outcome. So when I think back on it, I look back and I see a very dark time in my life. I was feeling very much overwhelmed and almost like I had blinders on, that all I could see was just right in front of me. I couldn't think about anything else. I couldn't think about school because I was in high school. I just kind of went through my days numb. I was feeling very numb. I wouldn't allow myself to feel one way or another. And I think that was just kind of a survival tactic, maybe, leading up to the actual abortion itself, because I knew what was coming. And that's another interesting aspect is, on one level, I knew what I was doing was wrong, but like I said, I couldn't think outside of that decision. I just couldn't go there. I don't know why. It was interesting.
And your parents
So-
kind of took the decision out of your hands.
Yes,
And took the lead on, okay, we'll
this is what
schedule
we're
this
doing.
for
And
you.
exactly. So
And-
that's kind of where I went. So then I was just tunnel vision. So it was a dark time, tunnel vision, just trying to survive. And then the day of the abortion, that was really difficult. I remember going to the place and being on the table, and they did a sonogram, which they're supposed to do, but I think to just verify pregnancy. So they do a sonogram, but they don't show you. And I was back there by myself. My parents were waiting in the waiting room. And that was awful. That was awful. You really do just kind of block it out, because I just remember laying there. That's all I have in my head, is laying on the table. The nurse was up at my head area, and the doctor was down there. I don't remember the sounds. I don't remember smell or anything else. I just remember laying there, but feeling like this is not where I want to be. This is not what I want to be doing. This is awful. Why am I doing this? And then you leave. And then it's like you're expected to just go on with
normal
life and go back to school, and as if nothing happened.
Wow.
That's I really felt at that point kind of worthless. Just felt sad, but yet I couldn't. That's the crazy thing. You feel sad and you're down and it's dark, but you can't talk to anybody because
None of your friends
none of my friends knew.
knew.
No, none of my friends knew. My boyfriend knew, but how do you talk with him? Because he's the one that also recommended, and paid for the abortion, thinking that was helpful. Not.
Right.
So the the emotional, I had to turn off my emotions. That's what it was. I kind of
Yeah.
had to just numb myself to everything. And then you just start trying to take one day at a time and try to forget, although you never really do. But I would say it was probably 8 to 10 years, because then I met you.
Wow.
And you were the first person I told outside of
Wow.
family. But I think that's also a statistic that most women who experience abortion, they don't talk about it or share it with anybody. I think 10 years is the average.
Wow.
I mean, so can you imagine all these women?
Of the secrets kept for that
Yeah.
amount of time.
Yeah.
That's got to have long-term
Oh,
emotional.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Because if they never reveal that, that's what Satan wants, though. I mean,
course,
you know,
keep
he
it
wants
in the
keep it in the
dark,
dark,
keep it
and it'll
hidden.
grow. Keep it hidden. So I am very thankful that through this whole journey, and then us getting married and all that, and talking about it and working through it, and then doing the Bible studies, now I don't have the darkness. Now I look back, and yes, the time was dark, but there's so much light shining now in it. That's a beautiful thing. That is
Yeah.
God bringing beauty from ashes,
Right.
you know? So that's what I'm thankful for, because the more times I share, the more light is in. And now don't make me cry, John.
Sorry.
But I think, you know, everything. I mean, when God said He forgives, He does forgive completely.
No matter what.
No matter what you've done, everybody is welcome. So I just want my story to bring hope to other people,
Yeah.
and to know that you can share and you can walk through it. As difficult as it is to remember, there's healing and forgiveness on the other side.
And there are people like us willing to talk about it and talk
Absolutely.
with anybody who wants to talk with us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And God's opened a lot of doors of opportunity for you to share your story.
Wasn't that crazy, sharing it with a bunch of
College
guys? That was so funny.
Yeah.
So showing up to that group, that was hilarious. We were gonna, I just had expected in my mind, you know, a mix of guys and girls and stuff. And so when we show up and I sit down, that was funny. We all look around and there's 8 or 10 college guys, and I'm like,
so we had a college group come visit your pregnancy center to just take a tour, just get familiar with, you know, what happens, the counseling services, all that. And they said, oh, well, we want to know more about this. And so we set up another date to go have another meeting so you could go into your story more. And it just so happened that this meeting is all guys. I'm like,
but you know,
Lord, you have a sense of humor.
Exactly.
But the guys are just as responsible.
Absolutely.
Just as, and hopefully they can tell their friends, their roommates, and maybe they won't be like me, and they'll actually stand up and say something to their other roommates or their friends or fraternity brothers or whatever. To say no.
That's been an interesting. This has been an interesting journey. The more people we're connected with, and the more groups, but that one was a good one. That was like, all right, Lord, we're going to be talking about sex and abortion with a bunch of college guys. Here we go. Let's
not
do
awkward.
This. No,
not uncomfortable.
But there's that conversation again. Having that, just the openness and willingness to speak it out loud. And how many of those guys shared with us what they had been through and lived through, and, you know, their stories. So there's something about people's testimonies, something about people's stories, that if we're willing to be vulnerable and transparent, that's where people connect.
Right.
It's not when times are good and, oh, look at me, I'm so strong at this or that. It's when we're weak and going through hard times, you know?
Right.
So that was a epic story I'll
It
never
was.
forget, an epic time. It's like, wow, the Lord knew exactly who he needed
He
to be
did.
there. So
Yeah.
who knows where that's going to lead. That's pretty funny.
Mm-hmm. Ah, yes.
So,
Crazy, crazy. God has a sense of humor, for sure.
well, so now with our kids, I love that they are open and honest with us, that we can be transparent with them. And, you know, even after we told them about my abortion too, that was really difficult.
Yeah, that
That-
was probably the first significant, most difficult conversation.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Because at that point, I hadn't shared, of course you knew,
With anybody.
but nobody really
outside.
outside the family knew.
Yeah.
But we knew when they got older.
Yep.
That was a conversation we wanted to have. Because if anything, just to say, don't do what I did. You know, don't make the same mistake. That if they find themselves in the situation I was in at 16, we will handle it. We will handle it. We'd rather not, you know, be in that predicament, but
But we will,
would-
when you say handle it,
we
let's
would
clarify.
Yes. Okay, Clara. We will come alongside
Side
them,
and support.
support
Yeah.
having a baby.
Having a baby in the family.
That's right.
Our first
That's right.
grandkid.
Absolutely. And we will talk
Yeah.
and share.
It won't be a
Yeah.
secret. It won't be a
Yeah.
thing to be embarrassed about.
But I still remember sitting at the kitchen table, and they had no idea. We went and saw the movie Unplanned, and that was hard to watch. That was very difficult. I remember having my jacket, and at some point I had to put it over my eyes. I couldn't watch parts of it. But I felt like I needed to sit there and watch it and see. And then we came home and told the kids, and boy, that was talk about, we cried,
Yeah.
we mourned. That was, and then our son says, oh, and it just killed me when he said, you mean I had an older brother or sister? And I said, yep, you did. Sorry. And still.
I hadn't even, when he said that, I hadn't even considered from his perspective what he would, how he would react, how he would respond. And I'm so thankful, though, that in his relationships in the future and in our daughter's relationship, they understand the
Gravity.
long-term consequences.
Sure.
That's the problem in, so we as parents, we are our child's first teacher. We're the primary teacher in our child's life. And if we're letting some other people teach that, that's not an appropriate way to share the intimate stories that you want to share as as their parents. And they're teaching lots of crazy, strange, perverted stuff.
Well,
in school.
I learned from the world.
Oh, you did?
I mean, and look
And
at,
I did. I guess I remember seeing a film strip. That's how old
yeah.
I was.
Yeah.
But they separated the boys and the girls. But my parents never talked about that growing up at all. It was never discussed. It was never, I guess they assumed everything would just run its course,
Well, this is what happens when
Yeah.
you have two families who don't talk about anything. This is, this is what it creates.
Yeah. And so that's why when we got married, we said, okay, we're not going to do what our parents
Right.
didn't do. we're going to talk about the difficult stuff. Because if you talk about it when the kids are little in a age-appropriate manner,
And just go
just
walk
build
with
on
them.
that,
Right.
build on those
Right.
concepts. They'll get it. And it doesn't have to be a birds and bees conversation. It can be a natural.
Just a natural.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yep.
A friend of mine had said, it was so funny, I don't know if you remember this, but a friend of mine had said, you know, as parents, we are the experts in sex. So why in the world, if we're the experts, why would we not
Why would
inform our
we?
kids?
Yeah,
You
we're
know?
abdicating
Why
our
are we letting the world teach them
responsibility.
this?
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
And a
it's
lot of
true.
these
And,
experts have never had a healthy relationship.
some of these experts, ooh. Yeah, I don't
Yep.
want them educating my children.
Mm-hmm.
But that's why we got to do it. And that's why God has given us these children into
Yep.
our care to steward them and disciple them and come alongside them
Mm-hmm.
and nurture them, you know. So
Absolutely.
I am so thankful for that. And I'm thankful that you and I both recognized early on that we needed to do things differently.
Differently
I think
than
that's,
our own parents.
yeah.
Yep.
So those are lots of growth.
Mm-hmm.
I would say every conversation, every person, every life, you grow a little more in our own walk with the Lord, but together, and then as a
Right.
family.
Yep.
Again, that connection as a family to work through these things.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yep. Deeper level of trust and commitment and
for sure.
support and all that.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's been a journey. Glad we're on it together.
Me too. Yep. Did you find relief after the abortion had been done? Were you relieved and oh, good, now it's taken care of. Now I can get on with my typical high school life and resume.
I would say there was a brief relief period of time. It lasted for a short amount of time. I would say maybe a year or two, but it was also because I wasn't allowing myself to think about it.
Sure.
So I just wanted to focus purposefully on other things, take my mind off of it. But at first, yes, there was a little bit of relief. But then, over time, it became the statement, oh God, what have I done? Hit me full force. You know? And then that's when the realization, then I allowed myself kind of that realization to just hit me. And it was somewhere early on with my walk with the Lord, because I would have claimed the label of Christian in high school, but I was anything but, to be honest. I was not living a Christian life. Did I change my ways in college? No. That was stupid too. You would have thought that something like that, you would immediately go, oh, I'm not ever going to put myself in that position.
Right.
Oh yeah, no, not me. Not my rebellious ways. So I'd say for a short time there was a little bit of a relief, but then over the years as I started really walking with the Lord and really recommitted my life to Christ, and we met and we knew we wanted to be in church and have a relationship with Jesus, that it was kind of right around that time that all of the feelings, you can only stuff it down for so long.
Yeah.
You can only keep it suppressed for so long because it'll just eat you alive. I mean, it really will. So I think when I really started getting serious about my faith again, that's when it hit me of, oh God, what have I done? I am so sorry. And I repented, cried, repented and cried more, and then sought counseling,
Yeah,
sought
which is an
help,
important piece
right,
of that.
to walk through this, to just, and I'll say, when it first hits you, it hits you like a ton of bricks. And then every conversation about it is difficult. Every reliving it or thinking through the process and going back over was difficult. But over time, now that I've processed and healed, and now it's not as difficult. That emotional weight
Yeah.
isn't there as much. But yet, when I talk with women who have either had an abortion or are considering it, now I understand the gravity. I understand the weight that they're carrying,
Yeah, at that
or
moment.
feeling. Yeah.
And I would think it's a relief to talk to somebody who's been through that decision and regretted it, obviously, but to actually learn from
Right.
your experience. And
Right.
so these women, that's all the women want, is somebody to come alongside them and walk through this together.
Right.
And sometimes that's not the boyfriend
Exactly.
or the husband.
Yeah. Or the women who have had abortions in their past, to help them heal and lead them to the great healer,
Right.
to lead them to Jesus, because he's the one that can heal hearts and change minds and lead people through this, so you're on the other side, and you can help others. That I think is hugely important, to have the conversations along the way when kids are young, but then lead and guide and direct these young women to make the best decisions they can. And anyone who, I believe, who shouts their abortion that they don't regret it, I think the thing is they're not willing to really face it.
They've got to be repressing those.
Right, because it's deep, and the gravity of the
They're
situation, they just don't want to
considering-
face it yet.
yeah.
And I totally get that.
Sure.
I understand where they're coming from, because I didn't want to face it or live up to it for years. But it's almost like with my faith, I couldn't go any deeper in my faith and in my journey with the Lord
Till
I addressed it.
Yeah.
There's so many things like that in our lives that we need to repent of. We need to own up to what we have done. Let the gravity of the situation really hit us.
Yeah.
Because then, once you have repented, you can turn and move forward and go deeper in your relationship with the Lord than you ever thought possible. But if you keep holding on to these things and never surrender every part of your life to Him, you're never going to get that.
Yep.
That healing. And
I don't think people have, again, thought through that aspect, that element, that there is more.
There is
a
more,
more
yes.
fulfilling life.
Yes.
As long as you're willing to
Do the hard work.
confess, repent.
Yes.
Yeah.
Turn and go the other way and let the Lord heal you. Because there is reconciliation. There's so much reconciliation. So, having that conversation with my parents, we reconciled
Yep.
the whole situation. Having the conversation with the kids, we were reconciled to the kids, and with each other.
Yeah.
I would hope that someday I could reconcile with my boyfriend
Oh,
and
yeah.
let him know that he is forgiven. That Jesus forgives him too for the part he played. because I don't know if he's carried that all these years. Maybe he's carried guilt or shame or
Maybe.
regret.
Mm-hmm.
And it breaks my heart to think about if he doesn't know the Lord. I don't want him to live with that, you know, that I forgive him.
Right.
So
Yeah.
there can be so much reconciliation
Yeah.
and beauty from
We hadn't even
this.
thought of that or considered that. Now it's 20,
Gosh,
30 years later.
don't tell my age. Yes. I think you just did it, John. No, that's okay.
No, you're not.
No,
Whatever.
no. I'm 40. Yeah.
Yeah.
But truly, I really, I pray and I hope that he knows the Lord and knows that I forgive him and so does God. So,
Well,
I've not thought about that till now.
we'll just
Well,
put that on our list,
prayer list
our
for sure.
to-do list.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, and in the reconciliation side of things, you've spoken to your brother and shared with him the secret, and he kind of was like, I knew something. It had to be something like, but he
Yeah.
never, in all these years, he and his wife.
Well, and he held on to things.
Yeah.
He held on to that,
Yeah.
you know?
So
So again, those conversations that
they're so important.
they're so important, and it just takes one person opening the door to be a little bit transparent, and then just to start that conversation can really open the door for true conversation, deep, healing conversations. So, yeah. This is good.
Yeah.
This is very good.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying this.
It's like a therapy session. Thanks a lot. So, so when you shared with me that you had had an abortion, we were dating, we were getting serious, and you know, what were the emotional things going through your head before what prompted you to share that with me?
I think it was the conversation. I don't remember where we were, but we had both said we wanted to be brutally honest with each other because we didn't want to waste each other's time. If this relationship wasn't going anywhere, we're like, let's just say it from the beginning. If it's not going anywhere, we don't see it developing into anything, so we'll just be brutally honest. So I think from that conversation, that kind of planted the seed of brutal honesty. And then I honestly, I remember being at the first house you had moved into. We were over there and we were talking, and I think I kind of thought to myself, if he wants me to be brutally honest, all right, I'm going to lay it out for him. And I'll see if he's really true to his word. Because, like, if I told you and you said, okay, I don't want to be with you anymore, I'd rather you tell me right up front, you know, than us be married and me say something and you'd be like, why didn't you tell me before I was married?
Because I honestly would have felt, I don't know, not betrayed, but like, wow, I wish you would have trusted me with that information.
Yeah.
And then that makes me think of all the women who got married, who are embarrassed, who can't.
Or who was in that denial stage.
Right.
Yeah, that didn't say anything about that.
And, you know, they're still keeping that shame and that thing hidden from their spouse.
Right. So I think that's really what it was. It was like, well, are you going to be a person of your word? And, you know, if you want brutally honest, here we go.
Yeah.
And like I said, I don't think I even said the word abortion. I just thought, if he's going to leave, it might be over something like this, so I'll just say it.
Yeah.
And it was kind of I was pregnant, then I was not pregnant, and I don't have a baby. You know, that was about all I could do at that time. That was a big step for me to get out of my mouth
Yeah.
at that time. But so I think that was the main thing. Just we got to be transparent from the beginning, and then I can see how that played out then in our marriage and in raising kids and in our conversations from there.
We've
It
always
really,
had a very trusting, deep, deep trust in our relationship. I guess that's what you'd call it.
I just,
And the honesty, just the openness is.
yeah,
I've not been afraid to share stuff with you because I know that it's going to be taken. And
yeah. I just was tired of the wrestling, the inner wrestling.
yeah,
You know, when you're in a new relationship, you're excited and happy, but then there's also, do I say this? Do I not say that? Do I share this? Do I not share that? There's kind of that wrestling, and I just was tired of the wrestling. I was like, I'm just going to lay it all out there, put it all out there for what it is, and no secrets,
yeah,
you know, nothing that I wouldn't want to share.
right.
So,
Well, it's worked
yeah,
out well for me.
me too.
Yeah. So at the pregnancy center, when you're telling them your story, what are some of the reactions that you've gotten from them?
I've gotten kind of a wide range. I have had several women tell me thank you so much for sharing. I don't always know if that changes the outcome in their mind. I try to explain some pitfalls and the mental health side and you know the emotional toll that it does take. I have had the arguments of, yeah, but you don't live on your own. You weren't on your own, and you don't have to support the baby by yourself. And I mean, I've gotten some pushback on just different arguments that these women in particular are having to walk through.
Yeah.
That's hard. That's difficult because I know that even if they got an abortion and they don't think about it for 8 or 10 years, and then at some point they do, where will they be at that point?
Are
Where,
they going to be any better
are they,
off?
right.
Yeah.
And so I share my story as cautionary tale, a cautionary story, but to really get them to think beyond the here and now. Because abortion is a permanent solution for, if you think about it, in the lifespan of a human, let's say 90 years, 80 or 90 years, to give life to a child in 9 months, and even if you chose a family for them through adoption, that's a year or two of your life out of 90 years that you have brought joy and a gift and a blessing into this world. And it's so hard for women right in the middle of it, right during it, to
be able
think
to
about, to see that. But then where my story is, I look back on that time and there's not joy, there's not a blessing. There's a blessing now in sharing the story, but it was not a time of joy and happiness. It was just dark. And when, if they would think beyond the here and now to the future, to bring life to a child, yes, it's difficult. Yes, the road is hard. But if you have 1 or 2 people coming alongside with you, you get to experience the joy of having a baby, the joy, the smiles, the love that I never got. I didn't receive that, you know?
Well,
So,
I know of a family who was in a scenario where their daughter got pregnant. They decided to keep the baby, carry the baby full term, and they found a family who would adopt it. And they have an arrangement, so it's so cool. The families have Christmas together. They have Thanksgiving. They have family events together with the baby and the birth mom, and she's involved in.
Those are open adoptions.
Yes.
And so many women don't know that the birth mom can choose a family. They get to think
Be involved in the process.
Be involved in the
Right.
process from the get-go. And the agencies support and walk them through that. And it puts the, what am I trying to say? It gives the mom a purpose to bless somebody with that. You know, to
Well, and for the moms who are saying, well, I can't afford to have a baby right now. Well, actually, yeah. And in fact, your life could be so much better having a baby and an open adoption scenario. But they're just not willing to consider
right.
that.
It's harder to consider that because I think it's part of our culture. We want quick and easy, fast solutions. And we want a solution now.
Yep.
And you want to make a decision and just be done with it and move on. And this takes more thought and more planning,
vision.
Yeah, but the adoption agencies, many, I can't say all, I don't know all, but many of them pay for the medical expenses of the birth mom. I mean, all the medical expenses, the doctor's visits, the whole 9 yards. It's so beneficial. It's so beautiful. And then there's state programs that help single moms have their babies. And if women know that pregnancy centers will walk alongside them till their baby's 36 months old. We still give out diapers and whatever they need at the pregnancy centers. I mean, that's amazing. So we can resource them. If there's something we don't have, we have connections to tons of resources in the area
sources of
that can help
support.
Yeah, help support, find places
Food,
for them to live,
housing.
food, shelter, clothing, the whole gamut.
Yeah.
You know, that's what pregnancy centers do. That's why we exist. And we are all about supporting life and the beauty of life. So that's
not the narrative that
Not
we've
the
heard
narrative,
that,
right.
we'll abandon this poor
just to
single
live
mother,
on our own,
poor alone,
and not
she
help.
has no support.
Right.
Actually,
we value life because we are all made in the image of God, and we treat it as such, high value. Well, isn't it interesting though how we have had conversations with our kids on deep topics like abortion and just deep topics over the years.
from the beginning.
From the
really.
beginning, that we were very intentional about that because I know I've shared with you some over the years about how quiet and silent my family was, that the conversations when it came to sex and marriage and dating, they were non-existent. There weren't any conversations. We were just kind of figuring it out on our own. And what I find most interesting was the fact that I grew up in a Christian home. We went to church, we did the church things, we were very active, and I thought, why was that conversation, why did that never happen out of all those years?
It just was never brought up and never discussed. And that would be my family as well. I think it was a typical family upbringing where it just wasn't discussed. So we learned from our friends and
And that was bad. They were
Probably not the
bad
best
teachers.
advice. Yeah.
Bad teachers.
So
Not
when we had our own kids, we decided we're not going to leave it up to chance.
right.
We're actually going to let them know what it's
Right.
all
Let's,
about, and at age appropriate times.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But because of the silence in my home, because there was a lack of conversations, I mean, talk about learning the hard way. You know, when I became sexually active at 15, that's what everybody was doing in high school. That was part of dating. That was just a part of it.
Right.
And then at 16, getting pregnant, and then the world just kind of caved in. And it kind of hit the fan from there. Just because I knew at that point, whether I wanted to have the conversation or not, I had to. What could I do? I couldn't walk that road alone and live in my home and be a pregnant teen, you know. So I would say telling my parents was the hardest thing I had ever done.
I'll bet.
Yeah,
I'll bet it was.
it was a difficult conversation, and the fact that I don't know if we even said the word abortion. My boyfriend at the time, he had saved money to pay for it, but again, I think he only said, I saved all this money to help with the situation, you know, to help with the problem. He never said abortion either. Nobody, it was weird. Nobody spoke these words, but we all knew deep down what was going on and what was going to happen. Yeah. So that is such a harder
way of
conversation to have.
Separating yourself from the actual thing that was
Right.
going to happen.
But what a harder conversation to have than in the beginning if it would have just been brought up. The natural course of life in a woman's life with her period and the body changes and all the things, you know, how much easier that conversation would have been with my parents. Would have been. Exactly. Because here I am all these years later, and I still remember everything that went on at 16 years old. You know, that's a traumatic event that does not leave somebody. You remember, you know, walk through that it was a very dark time, and trying to process it now, little by little, and after having children of our own, I think we both kind of knew.
We did.
That
sooner or later, there was going to come a time when this had to be shared with our family, and then
right.
eventually with the audience that's going to be watching this video, because it's important for them to hear.
And you know, it's thinking about Matthew and Allison. Well, should I have said their names? I don't know.
Our children,
And
thinking about our children.
thinking about our children, how much they resisted the conversations over the years.
Right.
But now, them being able to talk to us about anything, that is such a blessing.
Nothing is off the table, and
right.
they're not embarrassed. In fact, I think our son said he was really appreciative of having those awkward conversations at the time. Yeah.
But what a better conversation to have than my story, you know?
I almost feel like the decision was made in a 5-minute decision was made.
Oh, completely.
For a thing that was going to affect you for the next 40 years.
Right. It's a very permanent solution that stays with you, you know? And I would say that we really didn't look into other options. It was kind of just I told my mom, and my mom found a place to go And they set up the appointment, and that was that. It was just kind of, that was the way we were going to handle it. That's the way we were going to deal with it. And I think there was so much shame, and then to not process that. They didn't process the shame and all of that. And that was their first grandbaby. They didn't
consider
connect those
all
dots.
all the consequences
Right.
of the
And
decision.
speaking of which, nobody talks about the mental health side of things when it comes to having an abortion. Any women or men, the guys too are affected, you know. But they think that it's a one and done kind of thing, but it's something that never leaves you.
Yep.
Never leaves you. And I am so thankful for the Bible studies and the community of believers that I've been connected with to help walk me through that, to heal from that. Because I think healing is the other side of it. So anybody who's gone through it needs to seek out healing and counseling.
Right. Well, and I think of, so my freshman year of college, my roommate had been dating this girl all through high school. They go to college together. She gets pregnant while, he's my roommate. And I had heard she got pregnant, and then he just in passing said, "Oh yeah, we're going to go take care of it." And I just distanced myself from the situation. I didn't speak up. I didn't say anything. I kind of knew. I thought, that's terrible to just treat it like it's a dentist appointment or something. Oh yeah, we're just going to go get our teeth cleaned, or whatever. But I do remember a few months after that they broke up, and I kind of wonder about her now.
Do you ever wonder what
should I have
you
done?
have done?
What could I have done? I was just a stupid 18-year-old college kid, without realizing the significance of that moment. And I could have offered some advice to her. And I think that's a lot of guys just say, well, whatever you want to do. They
I'll support you
I'll
in
support you in whatever you
decision
want to
is.
do. Well, that's a cop-out.
That totally is. That puts all the decision on the woman.
Back on the woman.
Back on the woman. Then she's carrying all that.
Yep.
And it took two to have a baby, to make a baby. So
why is it now all of a sudden
the woman's decision only?
Because 50-50.
It affects the guys too,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah.
So I guess I have maybe regret and guilt just for not speaking up when I could have.
I think all of us.
All those years ago.
Yeah. And I have since learned through the pregnancy center that all the woman is looking for is one person. And of course, if it's the guy who says, I'll support you to have this baby, that's all she needs.
Wow.
That's all she needs. But when they do say that, when they say, I'll support whatever you decide, that's not it.
That's not
that doesn't
really
cut it.
Being helpful.
Right.
And being
So
supportive.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's actually the opposite.
It's actually the opposite. Exactly. But even if just one person can come alongside somebody who's pregnant and just offer a different solution, a different way, that's huge. That's huge. So they know they're not alone.
Right.